Italian Open champion, and her semifinal was Naomi Osaka, 3rd seed. 4 Grand Slam titles. A former world number 1 who has won every single one of those majors on hard courts, which is exactly the surface they were standing on. 4 opponents. 0 of them ranked below her. Every single one of them a name you would recognize even if you have never watched a full tennis match in your life. She beat all 4. By Sunday, the crowd at the William H. G. Fitzgerald Tennis Center was packed to capacity, and a huge portion of it was waving the same flag. 3 stars and a sun. The Philippine flag, in the middle of Rock Creek Park, in the capital of the United States, for a 21-year-old who had never played this tournament before in her life. So here is the question I want you to hold on to for the next 20 minutes. How does a player who could not get a seed in a 500-level event walk through 4 elite opponents in 6 days and get more dominant with every single match? Because that is the part nobody is talking about. She did not just survive this week. She accelerated through it. Something changed in Alex Eala. Something specific. Something you can actually point to on a scoreboard. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what it was, exactly when it happened, and exactly why the rest of the WTA Tour should be nervous about it. But to understand why this week is so ridiculous, you need to know where this girl actually came from. Because it is not where you think. To get why this matters, forget tennis for a second and look at a map. The Philippines is a country of over 100 million people. Basketball country. Boxing country. Volleyball country. And before Alex Eala, it had never produced a single woman inside the WTA top 100 in singles. Not one. In the entire history of the ranking. There is no pipeline. There is no national tennis system feeding talent upward. There is no WTA Tour stop on the calendar. If you are a gifted young tennis player born in Manila, the sport does not come find you. You have to go find it. So at 13 years old, she got on a plane by herself and moved to an island off the coast of Spain. The Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. 6,700 miles from home. A different language, a different climate, a different food, and nobody in the building who shared her passport. 13. Think about what you were doing at 13. Now hold that image next to the players she beat this week, because the contrast is the entire story. Naomi Osaka has the Japanese Federation behind her, plus American development infrastructure, plus one of the biggest commercial machines in sports. Leylah Fernandez came up through Tennis Canada, a program specifically built to manufacture Grand Slam finalists, and it has worked repeatedly. Elena Svitolina came out of a Ukrainian system that has produced top 10 players for 2 decades. Zheng Qinwen came out of a Chinese program with state-level resources aimed at exactly this outcome. Alex Eala had an island and a suitcase. The first real signal came in 2022. She won the girls' singles title at the US Open. Junior Grand Slam champion. And if you follow tennis, you know how loudly people cheer for junior champions and how quietly most of them disappear. Junior titles are a promise, not a payment. The graveyard of women who won junior slams and never cracked the senior top 50 is enormous. Then came March of 2025, and the week that put her name in everyone's mouth for the first time. Miami Open. She entered through qualifying, ranked around number 140 in the world, which in tour terms means you are barely there. And then she started taking scalps. She beat Jelena Ostapenko, a French Open champion. She beat Madison Keys, who had won the Australian Open 8 weeks earlier. And then she beat Iga Swiatek, a 5-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most dominant players of her generation. 3 major champions. 1 week. From qualifying, she made the semi-final of a WTA 1000 event as a teenager ranked outside the top 100, and the Miami crowd went completely feral for her. Filipino flags everywhere, chanting. A stadium in South Florida that sounded like Manila. And then she lost. Jessica Pegula beat her in that semi-final. 3 sets. 7-6 in the 3rd set tiebreak, then 5-7, then 6-3. Eala had a real chance and it slipped. And in the days after, the questions started forming in the tennis world. Quietly at first, the way these questions always start. Was that a new star arriving? Or was that just one hot week? Because both things happen. Both things happen constantly. And if you are watching this and you already feel yourself pulling for her, that feeling is the reason this channel exists. We cover the players the algorithm forgets until the week they become impossible to ignore. So, if you want to be early on the next one instead of finding out 6 months late, hit follow now, because the rest of this story is where it gets genuinely strange. Here is what nobody said out loud after Miami. The pressure did not go down after that week. It went up. Dramatically. Because from that moment forward, she was not a hopeful anymore. She was a national expectation. Every match she played, a country watched. Every loss was a headline in Manila. Every draw was analyzed by people who had never watched tennis until she made them care about it. That is an enormous amount of weight to hand a 19-year-old. And for a while, it looked like that gamble might have already peaked. Because what happened after Miami almost broke the whole story. Here is what the highlight reels do not show you. 6 weeks ago, Alex Eala walked onto a grass court in England for the first WTA final of her entire life. Eastbourne. A 500-level event, 1 week before Wimbledon, and she had fought her way all the way to the last match. And she lost it. In tennis, that is not just a bad afternoon. A first final is a checkpoint the sport takes seriously. Because there is a specific kind of player, and every coach on tour knows the type, who can beat anybody on Wednesday and cannot close on Sunday. Who plays free when nothing is expected and tightens up the second a trophy is physically in the room. Eala had now been in one final. She had lost it. So the question that started forming after Miami got sharper. It stopped being can she compete with these people, because she clearly could. It became something meaner. Can she actually finish anything? And here is the thing about that question. It does not go away with time. It compounds. Let me give you the pattern, because casual fans do not always see how brutal this is. The WTA Tour has a specific graveyard, and it is full of women who had exactly one incandescent fortnight. Players who beat 3 seeds in a row, made a deep run, got a magazine profile, and then spent the next 4 years losing in first rounds. It is not a rare outcome. It is the statistically likely one. A breakthrough week is the easiest thing to produce in tennis and the hardest thing to repeat, because the second time you walk on court, everybody has scouted you, everybody has film on your second serve, and nobody is surprised anymore. Surprise is a weapon that only fires once. So, ask yourself the question the tour was asking. After Miami, after the Swiatek win, after every top 10 player in the world had watched the tape, what exactly did Alex Eala have left that they had not already seen? And then there is the second weight, the one no other player at her ranking carries. She is not playing for herself. Every tournament she enters, the crowd shows up. Not politely, loudly. In Miami, Jessica Pegula said she genuinely did not understand what was happening. She was an American, at the Miami Open, in the semifinals, living in South Florida, and she looked around at a stadium chanting for somebody else and thought, where are all these people coming from? Her words, roughly. She was confused. Now imagine being the person that crowd is there for. Imagine flying into Washington and knowing that families drove in from Virginia and Maryland and New Jersey, that people took the day off work, that they brought flags, that there are grandparents in that stand who have never watched a tennis match before in their lives and are here because of you. That is fuel. It is also a debt. And nobody at number 29 in the world has to carry it. Nobody. So she arrives in Washington in late July. First time ever at this tournament. No seed. And she opens the draw and sees Zheng Qinwen. Olympic gold medalist. Former world number 4. A woman with one of the biggest serves in the sport. Tuesday afternoon. Rock Creek Park. Packed house. And it goes wrong immediately. Zheng starts serving bombs. Not good serves, unreturnable ones. By the end of that match, she will have hit 14 aces. Eala will hit 4. That is not a small gap, that is a structural gap. When a player is serving like that, you do not get free points, you do not get cheap holds, and every single one of your own service games becomes a tightrope, because you know you are not breaking her back if you slip. Eala loses the first set. 4-6. And I want you to sit inside that moment for a second, because everything about it is wrong. She is down a set. She is being outgunned on serve by a margin she cannot close. She is playing an Olympic champion. She has not won a tournament at this level in her life. She has one final on her record and it is a loss. And the entire stadium that came out for her is now watching her lose, in the first round, in under an hour. This is the exact moment the whole thing is supposed to fall apart. This is the moment where the one hot week narrative becomes true. Where she goes out on Tuesday, flies to Toronto, And the story quietly ends. And listen. On paper there was no solution. She could not outserve Zheng. She could not outpower Zheng. Every obvious lever was already broken, there was nothing left to try. Except she did something in that second set that I have never seen her do before. Watch what she does at the start of the second set, because it is the whole story. She stops trying to win the way she has always won. Understand what that means. Eala is a ball striker. Her instinct, like every young player who came up hitting big, is to answer power with power. Somebody serves you an ace, you want to hit a bigger one back. Somebody drills a forehand past you, you want to drill a harder one. That is the reflex. That is what her entire junior career rewarded, and against Zheng Qinwen, that reflex is a losing strategy. There is no version of that match where Eala outserves an Olympic champion. 14 aces to 4. The math does not move. So she stops shortening the points and starts making them longer. Watch the two-handed backhand. She starts using it not as a weapon but as a tool, extending rallies that she has no business extending. She mixes in slice. Low, skidding, awkward. She starts pulling Zheng sideways, running her across the baseline, making her hit one more ball, and then one more, and then one more. She is not trying to hit a winner. She is trying to make the match longer than her opponent can survive. And that is a completely different sport. Because here is what a slice does at this level. It takes the pace off. It forces your opponent to generate all their own power from a low ball, which is the hardest shot in tennis to hit clean. A player built around timing and rhythm, and Zheng is exactly that, starts hitting from awkward heights. The errors do not come immediately. They come on ball number 9, and then ball number 12, and by the third set they come on ball number 5. Second set, Eala takes it 6-4. Third set, 6-1. 6-1. Against the Olympic gold medalist. 2 hours and 26 minutes total, and by the end of it Zheng is the one who looks like she has been running. Now here is the part I need you to actually hear, because this is where most people get the story wrong. The turning point was not that she won. She had beaten big names before. She beat Swiatek in Miami. She beat Ostapenko. She beat Keys. Winning big matches was already on the resume. The turning point is that she won a match her natural game had already lost. Plan A failed. Completely. On the scoreboard, publicly, in front of a stadium full of people who flew in to watch her. And instead of pressing harder on a lever that was clearly broken, she built a new one mid-match. At 21 years old, in a first round she was losing. That is the single skill that separates a top 30 player from a top 10 player. Not the forehand. Not the serve speed. The ability to solve a match in real time when your best stuff is not working. Top 30 players have one great way to win. Top 10 players have 3. And on Tuesday afternoon in Washington, Alex Eala found her second one. Then, minutes later, she gave the crowd something they will be replaying for years. She is standing on court for the on-air interview, still breathing hard, and the reporter asks her what it feels like to be so popular everywhere she goes. Standard question. Standard answer expected. And she reframes it. She says the question should be rephrased. Not what is it like to be popular? What is it like to be Filipino? Then she turns to the stands and says 4 words. Salamat, mga kababayan. Thank you, my countrymen. The place erupted. And I want to know what you thought when you heard that, because I have seen 2 very different reactions to it. Some people saw a 21-year-old handling a press moment with more grace than players twice her age. Other people saw something bigger. A player who understands that she is not just an athlete, she is the first door into a sport for an entire country. Drop it in the comments, because that moment is going to matter later in this video in a way you are not expecting yet. But strip the emotion out for a second and look at what actually happened on Tuesday, in cold terms. An unseeded player lost a set, diagnosed that her primary game plan was unwinnable, switched to a completely different style, and closed out an Olympic champion 6-1 in the decider. She did not get lucky. She adapted. And once a player learns she can do that, something changes in how she walks into the next match. Because now she knows the floor is not the floor. That was Tuesday. What she did over the next 4 days is where this stops being a nice comeback story and starts being a genuine problem for the entire WTA Tour. Wednesday. Leylah Fernandez. Defending champion of this tournament. 7th seed. US Open finalist. A left-hander whose entire game is built on frustrating people, absorbing pace, and refusing to lose. Eala takes the first set 6-2. Comfortable. Almost easy. Then the second set happens, and it goes exactly where you would expect from a young player who just spent 2.5 hours in a 3-set war the day before. She goes down 1-5. 1-5. Fernandez is serving for the set. The defending champion is one hold away from forcing a decider, and Eala is on empty legs from Tuesday, and the crowd is screaming "Let's go, Alex, let's go," and the umpire is having to quiet them between points because they cannot help themselves. She wins the tiebreak 7-1. Read that again. She was down 1-5, and when it got to the tiebreak, she won it 7 points to 1. That is not surviving. That is a player who found another gear at the exact moment her body should have had nothing left. 2 matches. 2 sets lost or nearly lost. 2 total reversals. Friday. Elina Svitolina. 2nd seed. World number 10. Reigning Italian Open champion. 20-time tour title winner. A former WTA Finals champion whose defense is legendary. 6-3, 6-4. Straight sets. And here is the detail almost nobody pulled out of that match. Eala won 24 return points to Svitolina's 13. Sit with that number, because it explains her entire week. She did not win that match on serve. Her serve was actually shaky, she was broken multiple times, they traded breaks 5 times in a row to open the match. She won it on return. She won it by attacking the second serve of a top 10 player and taking the racket out of her hands. That is a repeatable skill. Serving hot is a mood. Returning well is a method. And it gets better, because that was not the first time. She had beaten Svitolina in June, in Berlin, in the quarterfinals. The score in Berlin was 6-3, 6-4. The exact same score. Twice. 6 weeks apart. On 2 different surfaces. That is not luck. Luck does not repeat itself to the game. That is a matchup Alex Eala has solved. Saturday. Naomi Osaka. 4 Grand Slam titles. Former world number 1. All 4 of those majors won on hard courts, which is the surface underneath both of them. First career meeting between the 2 of them, in front of another capacity crowd, on the biggest stage of Eala's life. 6-4, 6-2. Not close. And there was one game that decided it. Second set, Eala leads 3-1, serving. Osaka gets to break point. Then another. Then another. Then a fourth. 4 break points in a single game, from a 4-time major champion, at the exact moment where a young player folds and the momentum flips and the crowd goes quiet. Eala saved all 4. Held the game. And Osaka never seriously threatened again. Eala broke once more and closed the set 6-2. 4 break points. Against Naomi Osaka. In a semi-final. At 21. Now put the whole week on one line and look at it, because there is a pattern here that I have not seen a single outlet point out. Zheng. 3 sets. 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. Fernandez, 2 sets, with a tiebreak. 6-2, 7-6. Svitolina. 2 sets, clean. 6-3, 6-4. Osaka, 2 sets, dominant. 6-4. 6-2. Look at the difficulty curve of her opponents. It went up. Every round. Olympic champion, then defending champion, then world number 10, then 4-time Grand Slam champion. Now look at how hard she had to work. It went down. Every round. 3 sets, then a tiebreak, then straight sets with a break of daylight. That is backwards. That is completely backwards from how tennis works. In a 7-day tournament, players decay. That is the sport. Legs get heavy, serves drop 3 miles an hour, the 10th ball of a rally becomes the 7th. Everybody on that grounds was getting more tired, including the ones who were winning easily. Alex Eala got faster. She played harder opponents with less resistance every single round, against a rising quality of competition, on the back of a first-round match that took 2.5 hours. That is not a hot week. A hot week has a shape. It spikes and it fades. This has the opposite shape. And the tour noticed. Because these were not 4 random wins. Svitolina was the 6th top 10 player Eala has beaten in 2026 alone. 6 in 1 season. At 21 years old. From a country with no tennis system, which brings us to the number that, honestly, I had to check 3 times before I believed it. Going into the semi-final, the WTA's own match notes had Naomi Osaka at 3 hours and 5 minutes of court time for the entire tournament. Alex Eala was at 5 hours and 53 minutes, nearly double, almost 3 additional hours of tennis in her legs, in Washington humidity, in late July. And she won that match in under 90 minutes. Think about what that actually means. Eala at minute 350 of her week was physically better than a 4-time Grand Slam champion at minute 180 of hers. The fatigue advantage was enormous, it was measurable, it was sitting right there in the official numbers, and it did not matter at all. She was the fresher player, despite being the exhausted one. That is the answer to the question I asked you at the start of this video. What changed in Alex Eala? It was not her forehand. It was not her serve, which was genuinely inconsistent all week. It was this. She stopped being a player who needs conditions to be right and became a player who wins when everything is wrong. Down a set. Down 1-5. Facing 4 break points. 3 hours deeper into her week than the woman across the net. The results followed immediately. She jumped to number 24 in the live rankings. Career high. 1,931 points. If she wins the final, she cracks the top 20 for the first time in her life, and no Filipino woman has ever been anywhere near that number. And the final, of course, is Jessica Pegula. World number 3. Top seed. The woman who beat her in the Miami semi-final last year, and made her wait. The exact person standing at the exact door. The circle closes. Pegula was asked about her this week, and her answer is the one that stayed with me. She said Eala is the future of the tour, and then she added 5 more words. And she is already here. But I want to end somewhere bigger than a scoreline, because this stopped being about one player a while ago. There is a country of 100 million people that was not on the tennis map. No tour stop. No system. No player in the top 100, ever. And in 12 months,